Welcome back to our second introduction for the Sefiros, our Sefiros Chabura that we're going to be doing this winter. Also, just to give you a little idea, is that we're hitting the introduction from three places, and these three places are always going to be the three places that we always connect to as Jews. What are the three places that we always connect to as Jews? So last week, what did we do? Yetziat Mitzrayim, right? We always go back to Yetziat Mitzrayim. This week, we're going to go back to creation of man, right? What is the ultimate purpose going back from the Briat Ha'olam? And the third place is always us right here, right now. And with these three zones, Be'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow night when we make Kiddush, we're going to use this focus of Bereishit, Yetziat Mitzrayim, and us making Kiddush, being in the moment. So the question for today, and the truth is that maybe we'll even, I'll make a little broadcast group, because a lot of times for a lot of the classes, I usually put out, like in the Chaburas, we put out a question, and that way people can think about it for, a day or two before they actually come to the Chabura, and then you come in a little bit more educated, or at least a little bit more thought has been put into it. The question for today is, what is the greatness of man over beast? And so I'm gonna pose it to both of you, and you can share, and maybe I'll even throw in some of the other standard answers depending on what you both give. So please, what do you think is the greatness of man over beast?
Well, my first response would be the additional soul and the opportunity of choice.
Nice. So you just threw out two different things. The soul, which is a really, really powerful point, but it's something that I think we might have a little bit of trouble being able to put our finger on what exactly is soul. Right? If you look at an animal, maybe an animal has a soul as well. Right? Do we know it? Can we show it? Can we prove it? Free choice as well. Free choice is an interesting one, right? How free is your choice? What can we see? What can we actually express? What is the difference between all of the other animal kingdom and humans? Speech. So speech is generally the most classic answer, because first of all, Onkelos, right? It translates that Hashem created Adam l'nefesh chaya, and Onkelos translates it Ruach Memalela. Ruach Memalela means a speaking spirit, and so we have the ability to speak, and that's definitely I think the most bolet, right? It's the thing that's most out there. But there are a few more. What else can you come up with?
I want to say, I want to use the word potential. Animals have potential to do things and to, hunt and have children and run and this and that. But when I say potential, I mean, well, first of all, to do mitzvos and to, I'm thinking in terms of growing in your relationship to Hashem, and growing, just growing, changing and developing and growing. I don't mean growing inside, you know what I mean by growing.
I know what you mean, and it's beautiful. What you just said is beautiful, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we're gonna bring that in. So shkoach for that one. That's really good. Anything else you want to bring up? I could throw out some other ones that are also pretty standard that people bring up. I think one of the first ones is the idea of man being upright, right? Man walks upright. All other animals are facing the ground, and we're the first ones, and that's expressed, as we call it, that we are dome. We compare. It's dome litzura elyona. We're compared to the uprightness, which also expresses the concept. It's a metaphor for free action and for consciousness and the ability to create our own destiny. In general, also speech has a number of points to it, and I think we want to bring them up, even though it might reduce the point that I'm about to make a little bit, but for the sake of being real, speech, there's two types of speech, right? There's speech, the fact that we can think in our minds, and there is a connection between the power to be self-aware, self-conscious, and to be able to create speech and to think in that way. That we can actually create thoughts and we can think them in our mind using language. So you have what's called the internal dialogue and then the external dialogue, and that ability to be self-aware and self-conscious. But let's bring it down even just a little bit more simple. Hashem created man with the ability to speak. But when he created man, man was alone in the world. So what's the greatness of speech if there's nobody to talk to? Any thoughts on that?
Well, again, I'm going to I mean, we believe that with speech, with word, God created the world. So I hear you, but
so there's something there. There's something. I love it, Reb Scotty. I love it. There's something so deep about speech that is even beyond even the fact that we're communicating with other people, right? There's something about that. Why did God choose to create the world with speech? Beautiful. So a number of years back, I was on Simchas Torah, and I was sitting and I was really sick. I was by my Rebbe, and I was like so nauseous, and he said, go upstairs and sit on my couch. So I went upstairs to his house. I was sitting on his couch, and I opened up a Chumash. And this question I was thinking about, like, what's the deal with speech? And I began to look at the Chumash again. And as I was looking at it, I noticed that there were two things that happened between the time that Adam was created and Chava was created, so that there would be a second person to talk to. There were two things that happened that involved speech. Go. What do you got, Reb Scotty?
he named the animals.
Boom. And what's the other one?
Pray for rain.
Yes. Oh, you are good. You are good. 2 for 2. So let's start with the first one. The first one is actually that man is a mispalel. He's a davener, right? The fact that he's able to stop and he's able to pray and he's able to communicate to God is that's already enough of a reason to be able to communicate. There's a beautiful this idea is beautifully expressed when you spell out a word in Hebrew. There's a lot of depth to it. So for example, you spell out the word Adam, Aleph Daled Mem, and there's so much there, right? It says, you have Adam, David, Mashiach, right? Which connects, it's Aleph, Daled, Mem. It connects the whole thing. And every word is so deep. There's so much going on there. However, you can even take it a step deeper. You can go into Gematrias, right? So Adam is Gematria 45, which is very deep. It's Gematria, one of Hashem's names. And there's a lot going on with that. But then you can also take the name of Hashem and you can spell out each letter. So Aleph would be spelled out Aleph Lamed Pei. And Daled would be spelled Daled Lamed Taf. And Mem would be spelled Mem Mem. And if you take the hidden letters, what do they spell out? So in Aleph, you would take the Lamed and the Pei. The Daled, you would take the Lamed and the Taf. And the Mem, you would take just the second Mem. What does that spell? It spells out Mitpalel. And that's wild. That's mamish wild. That the pnimius, if you want to know what is the inside, what is the inner purpose or the inner dimension of man supposed to do, he's supposed to be a davener. He's supposed to be somebody who prays and uses his power of speech to connect to Hashem. And the truth is that mamish, this is really a course in self-growth and in working on ourselves. I'll peep pnimius, but the first lesson that we mamish need to know is that that rain will not come until the man prays for it. The pasuk, way the pasuk says is, or Rashi puts it, all the trees, the plant life had not yet sprouted. Ki Adam ayin la'avod es ha'adama, because Adam was not there to work the land. And la'avod means two things. La'avod means simple. You got to do ishtadlus. We got to work on ourselves if we want to see something grow in our life. And the second meaning is avoda. What is avoda shebalev? Avoda shebalev, that's tefillah. And the idea that until we daven for something, you should not expect it to happen. Even though we say Terem yikro ani ana. Hashem says, even before you even cry out to Hashem, Hashem is already answering. But it's only because we're actually going to daven. But without tefillah, nothing will grow. Tefillah and ishtadlos, and I think it's so powerful. There's a marsha on a wild Gemara in Kedushin that comes to mind, and the marsha mentions, he says that there's a whole crazy story, and whatever the totza'ah of the marsha is that if somebody davens for something and it happens, it's not called a miracle, because if you daven for something and it happens, that's called derech hateva. I mean, that's just crazy. It's like we have to realize that tefillah is mamish. It's an essential part of this world. It's an essential part of our realities. And if we want to be able to be healthy humans, we need to be praying. And in many ways, a lot of within the frum world, prayer has become a monotonous ritual, and we need to really focus on that and really bring it out and get back to meeting Hashem. And it's been, like the Gemara says, there are a few things that you need to be working on all the time of your life, every day, and one of those things is prayer. So, mamish, this is it. But moving straight along, because we've got a lot to cover. The second thing that happened is man names the animals, and this is wild. As I was sitting there telling you before about, I was sitting in my Rebbe's living room, thinking about this question, what's the greatness of man over animals, and then thinking about how it's speech, and then thinking about, well, what's the purpose of speech if there's nobody to talk to? I see the idea that man names the animals, and I had this crazy idea in my mind, and I'm going out of my mind. I'm like, is this possible? Is this real? Could this thought be real? It's too crazy. And so I came home, and I own an Alshich that's about 150 years old or 200 years old, an old book, and it was calling out to me, and I never learned from it because it's so old that it's an antique piece, it's like you don't use it but it was calling out to me. I opened it up and listened to the words of this Alshich. It'll blow your mind the way it blew my mind. So you could decide, you want to close your eyes, you want to get gewalt with it. Man is created, and he's sitting there in the Garden of Eden, and the angels come up to God and they say, Ma enosh ki sizkarenu, who is this man? What are you doing with him, God? What are you thinking? You're crazy. And Hashem looks at the angels and he says, excuse me? You're calling me crazy? And the angels say, I understand that we have to give you all the respect in the world, but everything that you created, God, everything you created, it made so much sense. You created dirt on the level of dirt. You created birds on the level of birds, fish on the level of fish. Everything was created on its proper level, and you just created it perfectly. You said the words, you brought it into reality. Vayomer Elokim yehi ar vayhi ar. But you didn't do that with man. You didn't do it normally. You went down to the lowest level of creation. You went to the mud, to the dirt, and you carved out a man out of dirt. And then you went and you took a soul from the highest places. It says, the Zohar tells us that when Hashem blew the soul, the neshama, through breath into man, it says, the Zohar says that one who blows from within himself. And so to speak, Hashem took the soul of mankind from the deepest places of God's essence. This doesn't even make any sense. Like, to think about it, what does it even mean? We're carved out from the Kisei HaKavod. And the angel said, the place that you took a soul for man was higher than anything that any of us are created out of. And God, I'm sorry to say it, but you're crazy, because how is man supposed to function if he's made from actual physical dirt, but he's also created with a soul of the divine himself? He can't function. He can't function as a human. He's going to be torn. He's going to have a dual nature that is just going to constantly be fighting with himself. How is he ever going to be able to function in any way? And Hashem looks at his angels and he says, oh, my sweet angels, you're so beautiful, but your mama's not understanding. He says, come, I want to bring you to a beautiful place. He says, come, we're going to go to Madison Square Garden of Eden, and let's fill the bleachers with all the angels. And you could imagine God calls a meeting with all the angels, and they fill up the bleachers And they all come there, and there, standing in the middle, is the clod of dirt known as man. And God turns to man, and God takes a clod of dirt, an actual clod of dirt, something that was so low and physical. All it does is it eats plants and poops, and it just sits there. And as God brings it into this arena, the angels all go, "Oh, you can't look at it. It's nasty. It's so low. It's so physical. It's so grub. It's so nothing." And Hashem turns to Adam and he says, "Adam, what is this?" And Adam looks up, this naive young creation, and he goes, "Oh, that looks like a shin vav resh, a shor, an ox." And the angels jump out of their seats. They're going crazy. They start screaming, "A shin vav resh? How dare he call that a shin vav resh?" You know what a shin vav resh is? A shin vav resh is one of the partsufim on the Merkava. It's one of the faces that's on the Merkava upstairs. How dare man call that a shin vav resh? The tzura of otiot, a shin, a vav, and a resh, that's on the kisei hakavod. How could he do such a thing? And Hashem goes to the angels, "Simmer down, simmer down, simmer down." And he looks at Adam and he says, "Adam, could I show you something else?" And so this time Hashem brings something from flying in the sky, and he pulls it in. And the angels also, they go, "We're supposed to look at this. This is not even kosher. What is this thing?" And Adam looks at this beautiful bird and he goes, "Wow, that's mamish a nunshin resh. That's a nesher." And the angels go crazy because this is another one of the faces on the Merkava. And they're going nuts. And Hashem looks at them and he goes, "Don't you understand? Man is here to connect worlds. He has a soul from the highest place and a physical body from the lowest place, so he can mamish bring all the different parts of reality together. God says, I created from oneness, I created many, and man is supposed to take the many and show that it's really all oneness." And the angels are screaming. They're going crazy. Does this make sense? This is nuts. What in the world is God doing? We don't understand this. This doesn't make sense to us on our level. Each one of us knows the level that we're on, and we don't go to another level. And Hashem says, "No, you mamish don't chap." Then Hashem says, "Shh." Finally, he calms them down. Adam's naming all the animals. The angels finally calms them all down. And Hashem looks at Adam and he says, "Adam, what's your name?" And Adam looks at himself, and suddenly the angels start screaming, and they go, "It's one thing that Adam should have the power to be able to determine the reality that's happening around him. It's one thing that he's not overwhelmed by reality, but that he's deciding what things should be, that he can connect things on different levels. That's crazy. But he could determine his own self? Are you saying that Adam has the ability to self-determine, to choose his own purpose? A human being, and Adam has the ability to look at himself and decide what his own value is, what his own worth is? That's crazy. Nothing should be able to determine its own self-worth. We're all creations. Isn't a creation mean that it's defined by the creator that created them? And Hashem goes, "Stop, stop." And Adam says, "God, I think you should call me Adam. Because you created me from the Adamah, you created me from the dirt. However, I could be Adameh Le'elyon. I could mamish be like you, God. I could have the power to influence, to affect the reality around me. I don't need to be controlled by my reality around me. I could be like you, God." And the angels flip. Are you kidding me? You're telling me that he could be like God? He's calling himself a name that is reflective, that he's saying, "I'm like God"? That is too much. That's out of control. And Hashem says, "Shh, we're not done yet." And at this point, God looks at Adam and says, "Adam, maybe you could name me?" And the angels just start heading for the exits. They are done. Name God? Are you like, how can, one thing to say that he can name the reality that he's in and he can affect his reality, I understand, and that's a power of humankind, that everywhere we go, we build our own societies, we create our own environments. A lion shows up at a place and it deals with its own environment. You know, every animal has to make do, it has to evolve to live in the environment that it's in. Humans, okay, I hear that humans can create their own environment. To go to the next level and say that God, that humans can name himself, that's absurd, but okay, we'll accept it. But to name God, how could a creation name his own creator? It doesn't make any sense. And Hashem goes, shh, stop, let it be. And Adam says, Hashem, you're so far beyond, I have to call you Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Ha-Yahovah V'Yiyah. You're mamish beyond everything that I can possibly connect to. However, God, because you're so far beyond, I can't call you that name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. I'm just going to call you Aleph Daled Nun Yud. I'm just going to call you my master, because my relationship with you is going to be one of receiving you as master of the world. And Gewalt, the angels, they're all sitting there and they're just blown away. Blown away, wow. The greatness of man. You know, it's one thing to hear that man could daven and affect reality. It's another thing that you could hear that man can perceive the realities around him and can control it. Okay, but mamish, that he can mamish make Hashem meaningful in this world, that Hashem's expression, the expression of Hashem in this world, the name of God, which means how he's expressed in this world, is going to be given over to mankind. Gewalt. 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 Mamish, Dayenu, we could stop right here, but it doesn't stop here. The Chumash at this point pauses and it jumps into, I'm going to open a Chumash for this. It jumps right into the sin of Adam and Chava. Okay? Now this is a very interesting story. So much so, as we get to the end of this, as we break this down, we're going to see that the Rishonim themselves had issues with how it was broken apart. So let's read the psukim. Okay. So here we go. It's actually very interesting when you look at the psukim. Okay, in Parak Beis Pasuk Yud Ches 2:18, it's not good for man to be alone. I'm going to make him a partner. And then Hashem jumps right into it, that he brings all the animals to Adam at this point, right? So he already said that there's going to be something to do with Chava, that there's going to be a creation, but then he jumps into right away Adam naming the animals. And then it goes right back to Vayipal Hashem Elokim Tardei Mala Adam. Now there's different reasons for this. One of the explanations is that by bringing all the animals to Adam, he then, so to speak, Adam recognizes that he's the only one that's unique in reality, and therefore he asks for a partner, he asks for a second human, and Hashem responds by creating Chava. Okay? And therefore it jumps right into creating Chava, and then boom, it jumps right into the Parsha of the Adam and Chava sin. Yeah? Now, our tzaddikim teach us that the truth is that the chet of Adam and Chava, that wasn't even really the issue. Eating from the tree, that wasn't such a big deal. If they would have if Hashem would have showed up and Hashem would have said, hey, Adam, what happened? Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from? If Adam would have been standing there, Adam and Chava, and instead of hiding, they would have stood there, embarrassed, ashamed, recognizing their own nakedness and recognizing their own chet, and said, Hashem, here we are, Ashamnu, we're sorry. If they would have accepted it right away, there wouldn't have been an issue. Instead, what was the issue? The issue was how they responded. Let's read it because it's so painful. Adam and Chava hide. Vayikra Hashem Elikim ala Adam v'yomer la'ayaka. Hashem calls out to Adam and says, where are you? What have you done? How'd you end up so lost? And Adam says, I heard you coming and I got frightened and I ran away. And Hashem says, how'd you know that you're naked? Did you eat from the tree that I told you not to eat from? And what does Adam say? Gewalt. Mamish, we should tear our clothes when we read these words. Vayomer Adam, and Adam said, Ha'isha asher nasata imadi, hi nasna li min ha'etz va'eichal. The woman that you gave me caused me to sin. As opposed to accepting our own responsibility, Adam blames it on Chava. And Hashem turns to Chava and says, what about you? And Chava also, she doesn't accept responsibility. And she says, it was the snake that caused me to sin. And Hashem then says, I'm going to curse you. And let's hear the curses, because the curses are painful, but they make sense. Snake, because you sinned, you will be cursed. You're going to have to travel on your stomach and eat dirt. Okay, makes sense, right? Snake sins, snake gets cursed. Chava, you sinned. Okay, so Chava's going to get cursed. Makes sense. Pain of childbirth, suffering from a patriarchal society for thousands of years. And then Hashem turns to Adam, and this has got to be one of the most puzzling things. I mean, Parsha's Bereishit is beyond, but this is very puzzling. Ula Adam Amar, and to Adam he says, Kisha mata lekol ishtecha. Not that you ate from the tree, because you listened to your wife. And what did you do? You ate from the tree that I told you not to eat from. Meaning, it's not a bad thing to listen to your wife. It's a bad thing to listen to your wife if she tells you to do something against me. So now, right, getting ready for a good slap for Adam. Arura ha'adama ba'avurecha. Hashem says, I'm cursing the ground because of you. Bi'tzavon tochlena. You're going to suffer from having the ground constantly giving thorns and brambles. It's not going to be easy. But I'm cursing the ground. Adam's not getting cursed himself. Why is Adam not getting cursed himself? By the sweat of your brow, you're going to eat. Meaning, there's not a direct curse, but now you're going to have to earn your food. Ad shuvcha el ha'adama, until you return to the ground. Ki mimenu lukachta, because that's where you came from. Ki afar ata, because you're dirt. Vel afar tashuv, and you will return to the dirt. And now I'm sure your mom is shopping where we're going with this. We have to chop that Adam was at a point where he was, like we said earlier, Adam named himself because he was Adam from dirt. He was created from the ground, min ha'adama, but he also was Adameh le'elyon. What's the difference between being Adameh le'elyon compared to God and being Adama? Adameh le'elyon means, to be godly, means that you affect the reality of your experience. You can choose the situation you can choose how to respond to the situation that God gives you. You can choose how you will relate to the things around you. You can choose how your perceptions of your reality will affect the experience that you and many others will have. And not only that, but reality itself will bend to your consciousness. Bezrat Hashem, we'll get to how exactly that will all work as we work through the Chabura. But mamish, reality will change based on our own perceptions. Being dirt, Gewalt, it's a beautiful midah, right? We say it at the end of davening. V'nafshi ka'afar lakol tiyeh. My nefesh, my mama should be like dirt for everywhere I go. Why should it be like dirt? Because Gewalt, whatever you put in dirt, it grows, right? You put an orange seed into dirt, and Gewalt, it grows. It grows an orange tree. If you put an orange seed into the ground, you're not going to suddenly grow an apple tree. And if you put wheat seeds in the ground, it'll grow wheat. Gewalt, most amazing thing. And the ground was always so beautiful how it did this. And by the way, the truth of the Adamah is that it doesn't grow weeds and thorns and brambles. It's not supposed to. But what does Adam do? Adam goes from this experience of naming the animals, of affecting the reality of the entire world, affecting the reality of himself, affecting even God's reality in conscious humanity, or the reality of God as being named in this world. And instead, he sins. But instead of accepting his sin, what does he do? He turns himself. He says, I am more like dirt than I am like God. What of the two parts are going to define me, my soul or my body? Adam answered that question through his behavior. And his behavior was, the woman caused me to sin. And Hashem goes, oh, you're a makabel? You're a receiver? You're a responder? You don't determine your own reality? You don't choose the way that you're going to live? That's fine. You'll be a responder. You are dirt. You're defined. And that's why it means you're going to die. Because if you're defining yourself as a physical being, then yes, you're going to die. Your body was always going to return to the ground. But it wasn't. But you never were supposed to identify with your body. Do you identify death as when you take off your clothes at night and put it in the washing machine? Absolutely not, because it's a covering for what? For you. Why do you define yourself as you as a body? Before the sin, Adam realized that he was a soul, so he was wearing a body. Was he naked? Absolutely not. Because, dude, I'm wearing a body. Do you not see? Look, I got hands, I got things. I'm clothed. And suddenly after the sin, when he defined himself as a body, suddenly now he's mamish that he's saying, I need to cover up because I am a body. Go ahead. You're asking, want to ask a question?
I just want to say this is so wow. So wow. Really wow. That's all.
Mamish, no, I'm so with you. It's crazy. Hashem, the Torah is so lichtig, and we just got to open it up because it's mind blowing. It's mamish mind blowing.
Yeah.
So Hashem turns to Adam and Amish, and this is mamish the curse of Adam. The curse of Adam is one of recognizing that he has now changed his definition. And that's why, once again, Hashem looks at Adam and he says, Adam, you have to realize, even though you sinned and you're a responder, you have to realize that your sin affects reality because you are still created by God. And therefore, I'm not going to actually punish you. I'm actually going to punish the ground from where you've come from. I'm going to make it that the ground is now not going to be a responder the way it's supposed to. As opposed to the ground responding, and it's supposed to, when Adam is on his level, the ground will naturally respond exactly the way as you drop a seed in, boom, it grows a plant. Now, there's going to be a kilkul. There's going to be a twisting of nature that things are not going to work the way that they're supposed to. There's all across nature, by the sin of Adam, there was a falling. And we'll get into that at another point. But essentially, the ground is being pointed out. And this is mamish why it says 4 times, Ad shuvcha al adama, until you return to the ground. Ki mimenu lukachta, because that's where you came from. Ki afar ata, because you are dirt. Al afar tashuv, and you are going to have to return to the dirt. At this point, Adam, he gets the curse and he gets the message, and he realizes what he did. And the first thing that he does is he immediately goes back to trying to name things. and he looks at his partner, at his spouse, and he realizes how, as opposed to recognizing the goodness that Hashem gave him, and that how he was responsible for his own actions, he laid the blame of his actions at the foot of his spouse. And he mamish the next pasuk. It's a plia, and all the Rishonim ask this question. They say, "Why is it here?" It says, "Vayikra ha'adam shem ishto Chava." Adam names his wife, and he looks at her and he says, "The way that I acted before was going to call you I made you the cause in my perceptions. I made you the cause of all the issues in my life. I was naming you and I blamed you as if you were the cause of all the negativity that's going to happen to the world. And if I'd continue down that path, then that would mean that I'm going to say that you're the one that caused sin to happen for the world. But the truth is, it's not true. Your mamash going to be Chava. Chava comes from it has two meanings. One is that the vav of Chava really should have been a yud, which was Chaya. And Chaya is also a Jewish name, a beautiful Jewish name. That is the name of my daughter. And it's a name which expresses that she's mamish, the shoresh of all life. That she's mamish going to be the mother of all humanity. But Chava with a vav, the vav is expressive of the fact of the chet, and the yud ended up getting dragged down. But Chava also speaks a lesson of to speak, to communicate. And he mamish looks at her and he recognizes the power and the value of having someone to communicate with, of having a second person, that maybe now he's on some level he's fallen, and maybe his power of prayer is no longer on the same level. His power of naming reality is no longer on the same level. But he now looks at his wife and he says, but I'm going to recognize what I do have and recognize the value of this. And the truth is that this idea of looking at our spouses and recognizing them and seeing them as the gift that they are, as opposed to looking at them as the challenge. There's a very interesting Gemara, and the Gemara says that the Amoraim were talking with each other, and one of the Amoraim says to the other one, Gavat, I don't remember if he was complaining about his wife, or I don't remember exactly the whole Gemara, and the other Amora looks at him and says, you need to stop and just appreciate it. It's more than enough just that they bring children into the world. And it's an interesting point being made, but I mamish think that the Amoraim were coming from this pasuk. They were saying we need to recognize, as opposed to looking at any negativity, we need to look at the fact that they are the mothers of all future humanity. And I think that that's a mamish. It's Adam hearkening back, trying to get back to his shirish, trying to get back to his place of recognizing that I need to define my reality, and it has to start with the way that I look at those around me. And obviously, as we mentioned all the way in the beginning, that it doesn't make a difference. We're talking, right, mankind, right? We're talking about men and women, but when we all need to own this, we all need to take this responsibility and be able to stop and return to that place of that if this is what Hashem is giving me, I need to own it. It's given for me. My mistakes are my mistakes. My choices are my choices. My perceptions of how I want to see the people around me is going to define even them when we look at our children, and if we see them as good people, then they'll be good people. And if we see them as deficient, then they're going to always see themselves as deficient. And when we look at our spouses, when we look at all of reality, when we look at our friends, we mamish need to be able to look at each other and mamish give them that ha'aras panim. Tonight is the yahrzeit of Reb Shlomo Carlebach, and I we just read a mamish, a wild Torah from him. But mamish, he talks over there about that ability to see that ha'aras panim, to be able to look around and to be able to see the humanity, to see the soul, to see the shenkeit, to see the sweetness, the beauty in everything that's around us and in the people around us. and to be a shining light, to be able to shine it, to mamash, to give. When we talk about the panim and it looks to the pnim, and when we communicate with those that are around us and we communicate with reality, we really change that reality. We need to grab back, to get back to be what it means to be an Adam, what it means to be a human, and not to try to be an angel, right? The angels are not, there's no movement for them. They're omdim u'misharsim. They stand and they serve. But we're constantly moving. We constantly change the world around us. We have the ability to either lift up reality, to lift up the entire world with everything in it, including the ground. We can lift it up or we can bring it down. And now we're mamish, it feels like we're mamish Erev Shabbos, coming back to, going back to the Garden of Eden. We're returning back home to Eretz Yisrael, and mamish, we're being machzer Torah Yoshna. There's so much that's returning back home. There's so much incredibleness that the world is offering. And this is the return of Adam, that we need to get back to that place where we're not being defined by the circumstances that we're in, but we define the circumstances we're in by how we respond and grow from them. And mamash, so I just want to give us all a blessing that we mamash should be able to reach out. We should be able to see the hashgacha of Hashem, to see Hashem, that mamash in the experiences of our life, to recognize that when things are being brought before us, they're being brought before us for us to name. When there's an experience that comes to us and it might look really challenging, know, mamash, that it's up to you to name it. If you name it good, it will be good. If you name it bad, it will be bad. If you name it an opportunity for growth, then it will be an opportunity for growth. And if you name it a place where, mamash, that's where I'm going to fall, then that's going to be what its name is going to be. So, Gewalt. Let's take the power back. Let's take the power back of the koyach of our lips, the koyach of our speech, the koyach of our consciousness, the koyach to be able to think and to be self-aware, the koyach of what it means to be Adam. And let's bring a little tikkun to the world. Let's make the world a little bit a better place. L'chaim.
Amen, amen.
I want to open it up. Last week we ended up running out. We didn't have time to mamish to open it up to questions or points that people wanted to make. So please, I'm opening up the space. Okay, I guess this is we're all good.
No, it's just it's just beautiful. Like it's just beautiful. I guess I'll share something that I think fits so nicely in and really just adds to some of the last comments Yehuda was just saying with the pet, and I heard from Rachel Silver, one of the teachers in Shiriti. So she was talking, she was saying like Rosh Hashanah time about Tafshin Pei Beis, and Yehuda was saying so much about like talking and whatever. So she said that like if you write the pay, right, like it says it says it in the Torah, you write a pay. So in the white space of the pay, you can see a base, right? So she said that like we have to be so careful about how we talk in our house, and like Rabbi Yehuda was just saying about like how how we see people and like how we see our spouses and our children and our friends and our loved ones, etc. And she said that right now, like we read the black letters on the white space, and that's what Hashem like is revealed to us. But in Miras Hashem, like when Mashiach comes, we're going to be able to read the white space, and that's going to be like all the things that we don't understand, and we're going to have clarity and like all the things that we don't understand maybe about our spouses or like the people or whatever, and we're just gonna, and right now we're just being mevater for shalom bayis or for whatever, and like halavai may it be this year in Tafshin Pei Beis, but just the power of our pet, and how we speak, in the house, and it all goes back to Adam and Chava. It always does, right?
Mamash, yeah. These are. I like the way you say we start from all three spots, but yeah, Mamash goes back to Adam. Wow, that's very powerful. I never heard that with the pay bays. That's beautiful. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. So that's from the Alshish, what you said in the beginning also, like, it's just everything. It's just,
yeah, it's an unreal alshich. Unreal. I think he says that it's based on a medrash, but yeah. Murdik. Wow. Okay, any other points or questions or things before we sign out?
You're the best. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your getting the material together. Your presentation's phenomenal. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Mamish, my honor, my absolute honor. L'chaim. Also, one more